Welcome back. Steve Price in for Peter Credlin. She'll be back with you on Monday night. Now, I want to go back to that dangerous attack on the electorate office of Labor MP Josh Burns in suburban St Kilda yesterday, or early yesterday morning. Josh is a Jewish federal MP. Now, as I said last night, it's a miracle that nobody was badly hurt in that attack. There's an apartment above that actual office with people living there. 2 fires were lit out the front. Now, make no mistake, these attacks are not simmering down. They're not getting less. They're escalating. Now, I hope nobody's going to get hurt here, but I fear soon someone could. Now, those people who attacked that office were armed with hammers. They had fire extinguishers full of red paint. They lit fires with kerosene. And this all happened at 3:30 in the morning. Common sense would say in the light of escalating attacks, police would ramp up their efforts to crack down on this, but as far as I'm aware today, crickets from the police. No suggestion that they're chasing down the people who did this, and no suggestion of any arrests. They're investigating all of the attacks individually, but where's a task force? Where are the AFP? This office is the property of a federal MP. For more on this, I'm joined by Jamie Hyams from the Australian Israel and Jewish Affairs Council. Jamie, I last night said that I think we need to up our language when we describe these incidents. And I don't think it's an overreach to suggest that that attack on his office was a terrorist attack.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Stephen. I think you're right. I mean, when you look at the simple definition of terrorism, it's the use of illegal violence to achieve political means. So no one can argue that the attack on Josh's office wasn't illegal. No one can argue that it wasn't violent. And it was clearly to achieve political means. So I think you're absolutely right. And I think more needs to be done to combat this. As you say, this is escalating and escalating. You know, we saw horrific scenes at the Sydney Opera House on the night of October the 9th, where the crowd, on the kindest interpretation, was screaming, "Where's the Jews?" and "F the Jews." Then we had riots outside a synagogue in Caulfield in November, which forced the synagogue to be evacuated on the Friday night's Shabbat service. And it's just been going on and on. You know, there was horrific graffiti outside the main Jewish school in Melbourne, Mount Scopus. And more needs to be done about this from the police, from the authorities. The Jewish community can't keep on living in fear as we are. I've never in my lifetime had to feel like my community is living in fear as we are now. We're being doxxed, we're being ostracised. Jewish people having businesses in the northern suburbs have had to move down to Caulfield to be able to continue to make their livelihood. It's just enough. You know, we need the government to come out more strongly about this. It's enough that they're saying, you know, they can't say anti-Semitism without saying Islamophobia. I mean, the police have put out figures just recently about the number of complaints they've been getting, and they had 197 relevant complaints. 88 of them were for anti-Semitism, 16 for Islamophobia, and of the rest, 87 of them were about anti-Israel incidents and 6 were about anti-Palestinian incidents. So we need a sense of proportion here. My community needs to feel safe in Australia, and it's up to the authorities to make sure that we are.
Jamie, I've lived in Melbourne on and off for most of my life. I've lived in suburbs with large Jewish populations. There I am this morning, early in the morning, walking back from where I go every morning in Chapel Street to get a coffee. I'm walking up a suburban side street, and I came across these stickers. They were all over the place, from one end of the street to the other. They were on lampposts. One was on a skip bin. It's clear that these tensions are getting worse. I mean, look at these things. I mean, there's a name on it about who prints them, but somebody's going out there printing these things. Presumably they're being sold online. Someone's paying for them. I've never known a Melbourne to be like this, ever.
No, you're absolutely right. And you know, people can say, oh, it's against Israel, it's against Zionism, it's not anti-Semitic. But the fact is, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Anti-Zionism means denying the right of the Jewish people to have self-determination in the Jewish homeland. And if you're denying that to the Jewish people and demanding it for everyone else, then you're clearly being anti-Semitic. And another thing about the attack on Josh Burns' office, you know, the slogan that was written on his face, apart from the devil's horns, which are clearly anti-Semitic, the slogan that was written across the poster of his face was just, as well as being nasty and anti-Semitic, it was stupid. You know, you're calling Zionism fascism when, as I said, all it is is the desire for the Jews to have the right of self-determination. But Israel's about the only country in the Middle East that's not fascist. I mean, they're supporting Hamas, which is clearly a fascist organisation. They kill people for disagreeing with them. You're supporting the Palestinian Authority, perhaps, where President Mahmoud Abbas is now in the 19th year of his 4-year term, where journalists are beaten up for writing, bad things about him, and yet they're calling Zionism fascism. It's just ridiculous. It's a complete inversion of reality.
Just quickly before you go, you went to some of the sites of those October 7 attacks. How did you find that emotionally?
Well, it was very confronting. I mean, you can see the absolute destruction and devastation that the terrorists wrought on those kibbutzes. We went to the Nova site where there's posters of each of the victims. We met Mazal, who was a survivor of the Nova massacre, and she was on Shari last night, and she only survived because the terrorists thought she was dead, and her friends weren't so fortunate. But even more confronting is we saw a 47-minute film of some of the horrific things that Hamas did on October 7, mostly taken from their own body cameras because they were so proud of what they did, they wanted everyone to see it. And the things that you saw in that film, and it wasn't the worst, we were assured it was not the worst. But you see a photo of a bus stop of elderly people waiting for the bus, and then you see another photo of them all lying in pools of blood. You see terrorists having a poor innocent civilian kneeling in front of them, pointing a gun at them and just shooting them. You saw a dead soldier, having his head hacked off. They fortunately didn't show us people being set on fire, but what we did see was bodies burnt to crisps, and some of them had their arms bound with wires. And so when people are wearing the Hamas emblem, and when people are supporting Hamas, this is what they're supporting. It's the very worst of barbarism. It's at least equal to what Islamic State was doing. And it's just appalling that people should support that. And if people are wearing the Hamas emblem, then to my mind, they're in breach of the Crimes Act. They're in breach of all morality. And again, the authority should do something about it.
Horrific stuff. Jamie Hyams, thank you very much for your time and your advocacy. I really appreciate it.